So the sports world was shaken up by the police shooting of Jacob Blake, starting with the Milwaukee Bucks, whose home state of Wisconsin is where the shooting took place. They refused to partake in their playoff game against the Orlando Magic, triggering a league-wide boycott, which then led to other sports leagues boycotting as well. So the media regularly politicizes events and presents false dichotomies, convincing the public that every incident is a part of a larger trend on which everyone must pick a side. And the facts are often lost in the polarity of politics. And regardless of your position on a given topic, if you don't have the facts, then you can't credibly defend your position. So on August 23rd, around 5:11, a woman called 911 on Jacob Blake, to whom she referred as her boyfriend, despite the fact that she had an open restraining order against him, and despite the fact that he's currently engaged to another woman. So the restraining order stems from an incident that allegedly occurred on May 3rd, when the woman claims that Jacob Blake sexually assaulted her via digital penetration, meaning by finger or fingers. That is considered third-degree sexual assault, which is a Class G felony, and that criminal complaint also includes a Class A and a Class B misdemeanor for criminal trespassing and disorderly conduct. And if convicted of all three, he faces a total of 11 years in prison and a $36,000 fine. So while the criminal complaint was filed on May 3rd, Jacob had an open warrant out for his arrest since July. And because of that, when the officers responded to this 911 call, they received an alert that the person in question had an open warrant out for sexual assault, which could have led to the officers approaching more aggressively under the suspicion that Blake was a dangerous predator. And Blake has since pled not guilty to that original criminal complaint, which stresses the point that you have to turn yourself in if you're facing charges. Otherwise, the situation will only get worse. So when the police attempted to detain Blake, he fought them off, escaped at least 2 taser attempts, and entered a vehicle where his 3 sons were located. His sons are aged 8, 5, and 3, and to make matters worse, this incident occurred on the 8-year-old's birthday. And his fiancée, LaQuisha Booker, says that she was pleading with one of the officers to allow her to retrieve her sons from the vehicle while this confrontation was taking place. Now, a knife was retrieved from the vehicle, but it's disputed whether the knife was already in hand or if Jacob was possibly going to retrieve it. But his fiancée, LaQuisha Booker, stated that while she was pleading with one of the officers to allow her to retrieve her children, that Officer Rustin Shesky just grabbed Jacob by his shirt and began firing at him. And Officer Shesky did fire 7 shots at Jacob Blake's back, which in my opinion was at the very least an excessive use of force. And if anyone disagrees and can provide a logical justification for the officer firing 7 shots at Jacob's back, I encourage and invite you to do so in the comments. But I think that Blake's fiancée Booker made 2 notable observations in her statement that the officer grabbed Blake's shirt and looked the other way before firing. First of all, if he was able to grab Blake's shirt, that demonstrates the fact that he was in point-blank range and should have been able to be precise and accurate enough to hit Blake with a shot or shots to subdue him and eliminate any threat that he may have posed. But instead, he opted to look the other way while discharging his firearm, and that suggested he prioritized avoiding blowback over being precise with his shooting. And as it turns out, he wasn't accurate because he ended up missing 3 out of the 7 shots that he fired. Now, I don't know where the 3 bullets that missed Blake ended up, but they could have ended up in an innocent bystander. He could have hit another cop, and God forbid, he could have hit one of the children that were present. But the 4 shots that hit Blake left him paralyzed from the waist down. One of the gunshots hit him in the arm, and he sustained damage to his stomach, liver, and a kidney, and had to have most of his small intestines and colon removed. Now, when Jacob Blake's mother, Julia Jackson, arrived at the hospital to visit him, she said that he began crying and said, "I'm sorry about all this." And then she said, "Did you shoot yourself in the back?" And he said, "No." And she said, "Then why are you sorry?" And he said, "Because I don't want to be a burden on anybody. I want to be with my children, and I don't think I'm going to walk again, Mom." Now, if you analyze the sentiment that Blake expressed here in a private setting to his own mother, you see he's presenting himself as a contrite and remorseful person, someone who's acknowledging that he made some poor decisions that put him in a dangerous situation and has now put his loved ones in a difficult situation. But if you juxtapose the way that Blake has evaluated himself against the way that the sports world and the media has characterized him, you'll see that the contrast is stark. And I'll reiterate that Officer Shesky's actions were reckless, and I hope that he's held accountable for his behavior. But if we can see the error in his ways, how can we not see the error in Blake's ways? For one, he had an open warrant out for his arrest for weeks. He failed to turn himself in. He violated a restraining order. He fought officers, and he defied their orders and led them to a vehicle where his sons were located, while their guns were aimed at him. So while he was a victim of excessive police force, he has to assume a good deal of the blame for the situation that he found himself in. And to his credit, it sounds like he's already begun to accept some of that blame and that he's going to make some positive changes for his future. Now, there was some controversy surrounding the fact that despite his paralysis, Blake was cuffed to his hospital bed and was guarded by armed officers. But as soon as his bond was paid for his outstanding warrant, the cuffs and the officers were removed. But during her visit, Jacob's mother began praying for him when she says that Jacob stopped her and asked if the officer guarding him could join them. And she says that the three of them prayed together. So while some have exploited this incident to promote or engage in rebellion against law and order, Jacob Blake is demonstrating that he holds no animosity towards law enforcement as a whole, and showing that while he may have been compromised physically, that spiritually he may be stronger and better than ever before. Anyways, remember to always gather facts, gain knowledge, and walk in truth.